Tarah, welcome. I'm so glad to have you again. These videos are super helpful for people who I train, for people who read my newsletter, so I really appreciate your time. Um, for folks who don't know, it's Tarah. Maybe introduce yourself. I'll let you.
Yeah. Hi to anyone who hasn't heard of me yet. My name is Tarah Valenti. I am a registered dietitian, and we're going to be talking all about some nutrition topics today. So I'm really happy to be here.
Beautiful. Well, a lot of the podcasts that I listen to around a variety of things do sort of like a news rundown, and I get, as a trainer, I'm sure as a registered dietitian and someone who like works daily with people in nutrition, like every time there's an article you get sent, and I get asked like the same question over and over and over again. And so I wanted to kind of pick apart a couple of things that I'm seeing and getting questions about that have been circulating through mainstream media. The first is protein. And this one's kind of frustrating because, like, you know, I feel like so many people, myself included, many of my clients, like, we got that memo. We were like, I need 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. And I am like I'm eating cottage cheese and I'm eating Greek yogurt and I'm like adding powder to all my stuff. And then there was a New York Times story pretty recently that like, I actually went back and looked. When I read it a few weeks ago, it was like the protein lie. And now they've kind of like changed it a little. That I remember rereading it this morning, and it was, oh, here, I have it here. It was, the headline was the protein boom instead of the lie. So maybe I just misunderstood it the first time. But basically, like, oh, that's a myth. It's the vast majority of Americans are consuming too much protein. We don't really need it. All of those powders and pills and bars that you're seeing are just part of this like multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's like, wow, man, we just got on board, and now it feels like a little bit of whiplash. And I was surprised to see that. So I'm hoping you could talk a bit about like marrying what's happened in the world with and like, how much protein do we really need? Like, help.
Yeah. Okay. So the most frustrating answer ever, but it depends.
Okay.
I think where a lot of frustration and confusion comes from is this oversimplification. Usually there's an oversimplification when it comes to nutrition, but oftentimes you just hear this blanket recommendation of 1 gram for every pound of body weight, period. And that's like what most of the personal trainers are telling people. That's what you just hear everybody saying, everybody needs all the time. And that's just not quite it. Like,
Okay.
first of all, I'm really glad actually when you were talking about 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. That's a much better way to look at it, because most of the population that I work with has a goal to lose a significant amount of body weight. And so if we're basing recommendations on body weight alone, we can really get into trouble if body weight is a number that we're trying to change. So I actually like to look at protein in 2 different ways. One, I'm going to look at it by grams per kilogram. 2, I'm going to compare that to percentage of daily calories and then come up with a number that's right for the individual. And sometimes using percentage of daily calories can actually be a much more ideal way of calculating protein needs, because it takes weight out of the picture. So even if the person is trying to lose 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pounds even, this is a good way to get an idea of a protein target that's going to be reasonable, realistic, and effective for them. So if we're looking at calories, and again, depending on the goal, because it's going to be different from person to person, the most often I will be recommending between 25 and 30% of calories coming from protein. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering and you have an accurate calorie target, that's a really good starting point, is kind of aiming for that 25 to 30% of your calories coming from protein. Keep in mind that's mostly for a population that's trying to at least maintain, if not increase, muscle mass. When it comes to basing it on body weight, I always do kilograms just because I work in the medical profession. We always use kilograms instead of pounds. It's an easy conversion though. It's just 2.2. You just multiply by 2.2.
So let's do this as an example of how one would go through that. Let's say you have a 200-pound person who's I wants to lose 20 pounds. Now, a doctor has said, just to make it like nice and easy, a doctor has said you need to lose 20 pounds. So you got someone who wants to go from 200 pounds to 180 pounds. How do you math that? Like, how do you get like ideal, like what your calorie target is, and then grams of protein?
Yeah. So I would use their ideal weight. So the weight that they're aiming for. Again, this is a simple way of doing it. And I would probably multiply that by either, again, depending on goals, 1.4 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of their target weight is usually a good starting point to work with. Again, they're hoping to lose a significant amount of weight, right? And so 20 pounds isn't too crazy, but a relatively significant amount of weight. And we want to maintain muscle mass as we lose body fat. But we need to support the body in its protein needs as we lose that mass. So I would say if your goal is to maintain or gain muscle mass, usually starting with around 1.4 to 1.6 is a great target, depending on your activity level though, right? So like if you're not doing a bunch of strength training, if you're not an endurance athlete, if you're not exercising very often, your needs are going to go down and down and down. The bare minimum, that is the recommendation that you've probably seen all over the place, is 0.8 grams per kilogram for sedentary people. So that's like if you're not exercising at all. I rarely, if ever, recommend that little protein. Most of the people that I know are not like bedridden. So it's always going to be above that for the vast majority of the population. But for our active people, like the range is probably more like 1.2 to 1.6. And then for my athletes, sometimes we go up to 2. So
there's a lot who want to gain. They're good. They want to gain muscle.
Yeah. Or they're like have
or just very, super active.
Yeah. Like intense training protocols, and they need that for repair. But I think we also need to consider when it comes to protein, it's not just muscle mass that we're thinking about here. We're also thinking about appetite. So if you're trying to lose body fat and if your goal is to be in a calorie deficit, we know that significant or sufficient, protein intake helps us to eat fewer calories throughout the day because it has an effect on our appetite. It basically makes us feel full. So it's not just muscle mass, muscle repair, and muscle gain. It's also useful in helping to regulate appetite.
What's cool about that is I have a lot of clients over the years who just don't want to track their food. They just don't want to, but they want to make sure that they're at least like, I can add some protein. So a place to start, even if you don't want to track your food on the daily, it's pretty easy to figure out based off of where you are and what your goals are and what your activity level is. And I mean, I can help, you can help figure out what your ideal calories are, and then use the somewhere between 25 to 30% rule to come up with a target amount of grams.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay. Now, sort of getting into like, I was like really surprised, but this one New York Times article, and I'll link it in the thing, was like kind of going, not against, I don't know, it was a little bit contradictory because they had just written this great article about this new protein bar that I have not tried, but I saw the marketing for it and I was like, I want to eat one. It's called David, and they are apparently, the publication wrote like a big story about them as a company, which is just representative of like, insert your favorite protein product now. Like, I eat, and I know they're ultra processed because I Googled it and I was so disappointed, but I like barbell bars. My husband buys them for me. They're so good. They taste like Snickers.
They're delicious.
I'd even if they didn't have protein, it's just easy snack because I'm busy and have like 2 seconds between clients. But I do get, I'm curious, the article talks about like these, kind of alluded to, these are like sort of not super, like this industry is popping up to latch on to this. And I guess I'm asking you, what are your thoughts about like food versus protein powder and smoothies and protein bars like David, or like all of those things?
Yeah.
Protein fortified foods.
Yeah. I think we see this happen whenever there's any kind of trend in health. Like, I know that it's dwindling now, but keto was like huge for a while. And it took a little while. There was a little bit of a delay, and all of a sudden there's all these products that were branded as keto friendly. And now we're seeing, because people are so mindful of carb intake right now, there's insane amounts of fiber being added to all kinds of these processed foods to get the net carbs down and stuff. And so it's the same thing with the protein. We've really been emphasizing the need for protein depending on what your goals are, right? We all want to make sure that we're hitting our protein targets and all of that. And the marketing is stepping up, and the industry is recognizing, okay, people are seeking out protein, so let's match the demand. I don't necessarily think that's a horrible thing. I think that these processed protein foods have a place in the diet. We just don't want to be getting most of our protein from processed foods. We don't want to be getting most of anything from processed foods, but they can be a really helpful tool in certain cases. Like, you just used yourself as a wonderful example of this. If you're crazy busy and you're back to back with clients all day, and you don't necessarily have time to eat a beautiful gourmet, like, piece of chicken breast that you've cooked perfectly, like, in between clients, it's a little more realistic for you to throw down a barbell protein bar. At least you're meeting your needs. At least you're not waiting all day before you're getting your food in. We know that protein is better absorbed if we kind of sprinkle it in throughout the day. So
that's good to know.
Yes. So that's a really good way to get some protein in. And of course, I'm sure later that day you're eating a nice, beautiful meal with whole foods and, real sources of protein. But I think it's just about, at the end of the day, balance.
Now, real quick, back years ago, this is another thing that fluctuates on the protein goal, or on protein, but once upon a time, I have told a million people, all you need is 30 grams at one sitting. Your body can't absorb more than that. Or, that graph, right? Like, the ideal protein absorption is around like somewhere between 25 and 30 grams, and any more than that, and you're just going to pee it out. So don't make, my joke was like, I used to teach people how to make smoothies. I still do. And because I like them and they're good. It's a really nice way to get fiber, blah, 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 smoothies. But I'd be like, don't make 100-gram protein smoothie, because it's just a waste. You're going to wreck your, it's just wasteful.
Yeah.
And then
pee.
Well, and then I've seen some more places, also in mainstream media, where these are not nutrition professionals. These are just reporters covering maybe one study, or doing some experiential thing, where I've seen that number creep up to 50 or 60 isn't a waste. And so I'm wondering if you, and I love what you said, because people ask me too, I like to snack. I'd like to have snacky snacks throughout the day versus 3 giant meals. And there's that debate. So just reiterating the idea of spreading food out throughout the day. And then if there is a number per serving that you find is probably overkill.
Yeah. So it is interesting, because the number has creeped up over the years when they've done studies on maximum amount of protein that can be absorbed in any given sitting. And one thing that is interesting is that utilization seems to matter as well. So if you are an undertrained individual who is not exercising regularly, you might have a lower absorption rate than someone who is, let's say, a bodybuilder and uses protein at a much faster rate. So it does vary, I think, in between individuals. And it's been a while since I read that study, so don't quote me on that. But I have seen the number go up, and I will say it is above 30 grams these days. But I also have read that kind of at the end of the day, the thing that matters the most is if you're hitting your protein target, period, not so much obsessing over the timing or the exact amount and all of that. I do think there is room for optimization in there. Like I said, our body does do best when we are taking in protein periodically throughout the day, rather than all of it in one sitting. There's also other issues with doing that too.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well.
No, it's not going to go well.
But
I think you also raise, when we can close on protein on this point, you raise, I think it's important to reiterate something that you said, you have your athletes, your top performers, your high performing people. And you also, those are the type of people who are out there. And like for better, like I like a lot of these people, but like your Peter Attias, your Andrew Hubermans, these are like beast mode. These are like crazy, very like these guys work out a lot. They lift very, very heavy. You know, they move a lot. And so their needs are up here. And those are the people that they cater to.
Mhm.
And, you know, I love Peter Attia, but this is not protein, but like the same thing. Like I had a 70 plus year old client with like lots of arthritis say like, I heard on a Peter Attia, and I love Peter Attia, I really, really do. But she said like, I heard I should be able to farmer carry my body weight. And let's say she weighs like 150. So she's never done a farmer carry before. Should she be carrying 150 pounds? Like, no, you start at 10. So like,
Yeah.
you know, I like the idea. You said like you don't want to introduce something too much too soon. So like if you're feeling this pressure that you've got to get like 2+, you know, grams per kilogram, you know, like you can calm down.
Mhm.
If you are sneaking in a barbell or your favorite protein treat or a smoothie once in a while, you know, a couple times a week or whatever, calm down. That's fine, you
Mhm.
know, and you know, take into account, you know, if you just like, you know, go to Pilates once or twice a week and like go to the gym once or twice a week, and you don't need that as much as the person who's
Yeah.
like, you know, doing a bodybuilder split 6 days a week with a trainer for like 2 hours a day.
Right.
So find that balance, and wherever you are, like, you know, we've given the calculations like at the beginning for your calories and for your protein based off of like who you are. Start, and if you find, I'm just going to make something up, if you find that you're currently getting like 35 grams and your actual number is like 100, you can probably, not only just for digestion and like ease of life, like let's step up, like
Yeah.
I usually try to tell people, can you add like 20 grams
Mhm.
per day? Can you eat like one extra Greek yogurt, or like half a chicken breast, or like one scoop of protein powder and some water? Like, can we just like stair step up that way?
Yeah, and it will make a difference. Like 10 to 20 pound or 10 to 20 grams extra a day on top of not enough is still going to impact you. So it's not like that space in between 35 grams and 100 grams is like none of it matters. Like if you don't hit 100, you're failing. Like if you hit 70, you're still going to see so much benefit from that increase. You've doubled your intake. So it's not all or
100%.
nothing.
I have a client who, for very legitimate reasons, cannot track food, but was like, I can add a serving of protein because we're trying to get big arms and chest and all that.
Mhm.
And 100% over like the last year of doing that. That's the only nutritional change. There's no tracking. There's no like, and 100% says notices a visible difference
Yep.
in his physique, and from just adding a cup, like adding 20 to 30 extra grams of protein a day.
Yeah. It'll make a huge difference.
Yay! Well, that's perfect. Thank you so much.